Hey, I just wanted to make a quick video about cross-picking. Now, cross-picking isn't something we do a lot in Gypsy Jazz. It's kind of more of I suppose, a country technique. But where the crossover is interesting is that, obviously, as Gypsy swing players, we use, by and large, the downward pick slanting rest stroke thing. You know. So you can see that my pick is downwards like that all the time, using rest strokes and so on and so forth. That technique is well understood in the context of Gypsy Jazz. Now what's interesting is there are country players who do it as well, such as Tony Rice and Clarence White, who are downward pick strokers. Sounds a bit wrong when I say that. But anyway, so that makes me think, oh, well, if they use the same technique as I do, maybe there's some stuff which I can do, which they do, to sort of enhance my my repertoire of things I can play. I'm a very eclectic player on the whole. I don't like to be just stuck to one style of music. If I've got with like one technique, so I don't want to be swapping between like rest stroke picking for playing Gypsy Jazz, but maybe using alternate picking to play bebop or something. I would rather not do that. I'd rather have the same technique for everything. And I think on the whole, this downward pick slanting kind of playing is pretty versatile, and I like to use it in different settings. Especially since I found out, like, even sort of rock players like Eric Johnson and Yngwie Malmsteen kind of use a variant of it, and yeah, it's a good way to pick. I think it's equally as flexible as alternate picking in its own way. Anyway, sort of putting that aside for a minute, there are cross picking itself. What's cross picking? Well, it's kind of when you try to imitate the sound of finger picked guitar parts, like this kind of thing. You do that with a pick, which is kind of hard. That kind of thing. So really what it is it's picking arpeggios, right? And you need a lot of flexibility in how you move across the strings, especially if I keep alternating the bass. Right, I'm not very good at it, obviously, as you can tell, because I'm not a country player. But that's the basis of it, right? And one of the great cross-picking tour de forces, or tours de force, I don't know, would be Church Street Blues by Tony Rice, which is fantastic. And doesn't sound like virtuoso guitar playing, but then you try to play it, and you realise that it's it's hard. So anyway, a typical cross-picking warm-up pattern that a lot of country players play, I think, is this one. So let's start with just the C major chord. I'm going to go on the 4th, 3rd and 2nd strings, and we go down, down, up. Now there's different ways of doing it. You could alternate pick it. Or whatever. And there's a whole Troy Grady video about the mechanics of doing that. I think the guitarist, if I remember correctly, that he singles out is Craig Milner. I think that's his name. And he talks. It's very interesting. He talks about his mechanics of picking, which is quite different from anybody else's, apart from some one or two rock players, like fusion players, use it. But it's a very unusual way to play the guitar. But he's obviously mastered it. Now, Troy Grady refers to that mechanic as cross picking. I'm talking about the musical side of it, which is just basically picking one note on a string in the manner of an arpeggio, in the manner of a finger picked arpeggio. So for this, with this style of picking, the rest stroke picking, we're going to go down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. And if I look at my hand that way. Now, two things help me with that. The first thing is I like to keep my little finger just brushing against the surface of the guitar. Lots of Gypsy Jazz guitarists do that as read anyway. I like to do that particularly in this context because it gives me some reference point. And the second thing is, rather than doing the usual thing and playing that as a rake on the first two strings, then an upstroke, I tend to bounce. And I have to do that because if I play a rake, it's then extremely difficult for me to get over to the next string, to do the string hop as Grady might call it. So I'm just going to remove this music stand. So I find like doing a little bounce on each downstroke. So then we go up the scale. And then I find I can do it, right? That wasn't bad, actually. I don't usually do that fast. So down, down, up. Now this is different from kind of gypsy cross-string patterns like this, like the diminished thing, which I think a lot of players know, where you have two strokes on a top string, so are able to affect the direction change. I'll just show you what I mean. So it's this kind of thing. Okay, so if I do that speed. Actually, wasn't great, but you know, you're going to get the rhythm, so it's so it's more like rhythmic than that. To be honest, it's not something I play that often, because it's a bit of a set piece lick, but hopefully I've demonstrated it well enough that you can understand the principle. It's up, down, down. You know, you could do this with our country pattern. And that works very nicely, but the original cross-picking pattern is not that, it is one note string. Anyway, so that's kind of cool. How would you apply that to jazz? Well, I mean, obviously you can, you know, do things like this. Actually, it says not being able to do it, but yeah, you know, they can work that into other arpeggios. So you know, you could play. But I mean, on the whole, it's kind of designed to imitate the sound of finger picking, right? This kind of picking, so it's kind of more connected with country music. But then, if you want to play a country gig and you don't want to adapt your technique, then that's a good way of doing it. And actually, I like to have one technique for everything, because I think gypsy picking is a really good way to pick. It projects well, you can play very fast using it, has a lot of rhythmic accentuation, which is interesting, it swings. And I kind of use this technique with a few variants for pretty much everything I do. Especially since I found out that rock players like Yngwie Malmsteen, Eric Johnson, people like that use it, and country pickers, and bebop players like Tal Farlow and George Benson, and even Wes Montgomery uses it in his own way, because he plays with a thumb. So it's a great way of picking, I think, equally flexible and versatile for different styles of music, as alternate picking is. And it has some advantages over alternate picking as far as I'm concerned, although alternate picking is more flexible perhaps. But in terms of different styles of music, you can find downstroke pickers all over the place, rest stroke pickers, downward pick slanters. It's a very common approach. So in terms of, you know, jazz, I've come across this really nice piece by a guitarist called Chico Pinheiro called Triades, or Triads, I think it is in English. I think, I don't know if I pronounced it right, I have no idea about Brazilian Portuguese whatsoever. But he is a Brazilian guitarist who's living in New York. And check out the piece. I don't want to get stung for copyright here, but check out, I'll do a link below, check him out playing it. And it's all based around these kind of spread or open voice triads. This kind of thing, right? So these are major, first inversion and root position, major and minor chords, where the spacing of the notes is 1, 5, 3. So I'm going to get a tune here. Rather than usual 1, 3, 5. You know, this is 1, 3, 5, or in this case 3, 5, 1. Close voiced, and this would be spread voiced, where we're going spacing the notes out a bit more. So anyway, the shapes. I'm going to do a handout of a little exercise I play, which is this one. And I use the same pattern, the same bounce. That was rubbish, sorry. Like that, right? Do it a little slow if you can't do it. And there's a nice cross string thing in the piece, Triades. That isn't exactly it, but this is my sort of exercise version of it. Or even tricky because you have to keep track of where the upstroke is. So anyway, I'm just changing the notes a little bit from the original piece just because I don't want to get stung for copyright, you know. For all, I mean, it's just a bunch of triads, but you know, I suppose you could still, that's still like the piece. And YouTube has got quite clever about finding copyright, which is great, you know, because musicians should be paid copyright for their work. But I just try to demonstrate a technique rather than sort of, you know, play the piece. So, yeah, so that... You could do like the Bridge of James, I guess. Whatever it is. What is the Bridge of James again? Still a little slower. You can actually hear like Pat Metheny warming up on these sorts of open spread triads, you know. They sound great, and there's no reason why you couldn't use them in any style of music, I think. But I don't know how Pat picks them. He's got a very unusual pick technique. I'd be surprised if it wasn't something like this, though. So yeah, I mean that's a different colour or sound you can use. Basically, still employing your standard Gypsy Jazz rest stroke style picking, but maybe just moving it into a slightly different musical realm, playing some ideas that you wouldn't normally play within that context. Anyway, I hope you find that video interesting and might spark some ideas of your own. What I get at the moment, I'll try and stick up like a little worksheet just demonstrating these little patterns I'm playing, you know, and then there's this one, you know, which can act as a good warm-up. And then check out Chico's piece Triades, or Triads, or whatever it's called. I'll stick a link below. And then see if you can learn the whole thing. It's a really nice piece, and there's loads. It's very guitar-y in the best possible way. For me, it's that kind of Brazilian tradition of playing guitar coming out of Villalobos and people like that. But he's playing it all using a pick, whereas it'd be much easier to finger pick it, you know. So anyway, thanks for watching, and leave comments below as always. I'll see you soon.